I'm not sure where you are. Maybe it's afternoon. But I am excited to bring to the platform one of Yazoo City's finest. Some of you guys might know him, some of you might not. But his name is Ulysses Jack Howard. And I have a hard time saying Ulysses, but I'm going to just say Jack. He gave me permission to call him Jack. So that is what we're going to do today. So you will be hearing me call him Jack. Because I have permission to do that. But we're going to be unpacking a book that he wrote, a very timely book, and especially with it being close to Father's Day. This is a very timely and befitting book. And to have him on as a guest to bring his first offering, I'm hoping that he write many more books because from what I'm reading and from what I have read, see, I got all my note tabs. This book is called Don't Call My Daddy Boy. And this was written by Ulysses Jack Howard. He was born in Yazoo City on November 3rd, 1962. He's the fourth of 7 children of Clarence and Mary Lee Howard. He is a graduate of class of 1980. So class of 1980, you should be very proud. And he graduated in 1985 from the Mississippi College, where he earned a BA in political science and history. He's a veteran of the United States Navy. He served aboard the nuclear-powered aircraft, the USS Dwight D. Howard. So I want to thank you for your service in advance for that. He's also had the distinguished honor of being appointed to serve in leadership positions in the administration of 3 governors of Virginia, and is currently served as an assistant secretary of administration in the administration of the governor of Maryland. So Jack has he has proven that Yazoo City have produced and can and is capable of producing greatness, and that we are well prepared if you are willing to do the work, well prepared to be on the world stage anywhere, in any position that you're willing to work to get to. So it has nothing to do with being born in Yazoo City or what you didn't have there. It's more what you had in here. So we have so many people that can prove that, and Jack is one of them. So he wrote this book, Don't Call My Daddy Boy. That can take on a lot of different meanings when you grow up in Yazoo City. And I'm not going to blabber on about it. Without further ado, I'm going to bring Jack onto the platform so he can tell you all about the inspiration behind this book, what motivated him to write the book. And we're just going to pick his brain about his life and his journey. Hi, Jack.
Hi, Renita. How are you? How
I
girl?
am
How you
great.
doing?
I am wonderful. Thank you for joining me today. We are
I
looking
am
forward
glad to
to
be here
unpacking
with
this.
you. I'm glad to be here with you, my sister. You're doing wonderful things out in Los Angeles, and we're very proud of you. And you're one more example of living proof that Yazoo. Hey, we produce some wonderful people, some great, some people that are doing great things around the country, around the world, actually.
Yeah, we are. I mean, I look at Carlton, what he's doing. You know, we have athletes, we have politicians, we have world class referees, and just we have a complete plethora of whatever you want to do,
Absolutely.
whatever our unique talents are. We can achieve it if we're willing to put in the work. One size
Absolutely.
don't fit all, right?
There you go. And then right down the road from us in Kosciuszko was born the media magnet herself, Miss Oprah Winfrey.
That's
So
right.
look, we produce something in the water down there in the soil. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely. Well, we want to talk to you today and get to know a little bit about you. Your book has been selected as our first virtual book club review
Thank
for
you.
this platform. This is our first
I'm
virtual
honored.
book club.
I'm
So
honored.
it's very befitting that this is a week before Father's Day that we chose this book. Not even thinking about that. It just happened that way. So I say we in divine order. So, but
Yes.
I wanted to kick off by really looking at your back cover. I was reading that, and it was very interesting. What you wrote on your back cover. It said, you said, one of my primary reasons for writing this book can be found in the words of the incomparable late literary genius Dr. Maya Angelou when she uttered this memorable quote: "There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside of you." And then you went on to say, sadly, far too often the history of Black families is buried within our ancestors and left untold, and thus unknown forever to generations of our descendants who will come along after we are gone from this earth. I do not want my children, grandchildren, and future grandchildren to wonder out aloud about where they came from and who their ancestors were. I think that it was so powerful, and it led me on a journey after I read this. Because for me, my moral compass and my movement in life is always to know definitive truth when I
Right.
make my choices. And my I want to say my moral authority and what I look to determine what it is, even though sometimes I'm not able to live up to it sometimes, Jack, but at least I know I'm going to the Bible.
Right.
I'm going to the Word of God and say, is it right? Does it make sense? Is it true? And sometimes you can't even lean on that. You got to just say, what does God say about this? Right? So I went, Jack, and I looked and I pulled up this. And you were echoing the same thing that I don't know if many people can see this, but in the there's some scripture that talks about this in Judges, and all the generations also were gathered before their fathers. And there rose another generation after them who did not know the Lord or the work that he had done. And then if you go down, you will be able to see in Deuteronomy 32:7. Remember the days of the old, consider the years of many generations. Ask your father, and he will show you. Your elders, they will tell you. Then Exodus, it says, in the future, when your sons ask you, what does this mean? You tell them with the mighty hand of the Lord that brought. So there are so many illustrations in the Bible where we are being told to tell our stories, right?
Yes.
Tell our stories, to tell the next generation. And we are failing to do that for so many reasons, right? Some
That's
of
correct.
people have things in their past they don't want anyone to know.
Right.
Some people were born perfect. They've already always been this, and this is all they want you to know. But what do you learn from that? You learn more from what people went through than what they achieve. So you were willing to sit down to write this for your future generations, your grandchildren. From what I saw, you didn't hide anything. You told the good, the bad, and the ugly
Right.
of it all. So how was that writing for you? Well, why
Well,
did you pick that particular quote, first of all?
well, first of all, I got to tell you, Renita, that writing this book was therapeutic for me. It, you know, as you said, as you just read in the back of the book, you know, one of my primary inspirations was I'm now a grandfather, and I have she's soon to be 6-year-old granddaughter. I tell people she's 5 going on 25. And she would often come to my home here in Maryland. She lives in Virginia Beach. She would come here and she would often ask. I always kept a picture of my parents, the same book, a photo you see of both my parents, Clarence and Mary Lee Howard, on the wall in my home here in Maryland. And she would come and she would ask me, Papa, who are those people? And every time she would come, she would just keep asking me that. And I realized, look, I need to document, where we come from, who we are. I have two sons now, one 33 and one 25. And I want them to know who they are, where they came from. And if I could use one word, Renita, you read that the back, and I quoted the great Maya Angelou, and that is correct. You have a story inside of you want to tell, and it just kind of nags at you and nags at you. And I got to give thanks to my sister Thelma Howard, class of '79, Yazoo City High School, class of '79, who kept saying to me, you got to write this story. You got to write. Somebody in our family need to document our family, where we're from, our history. Why I wrote this book, it would be the word would be hope. Because you are from Yazoo City like me. We're not from some fancy outskirts of New York City or Manhattan or anywhere where you are now. I mean, you're not from Los Angeles. You live there now. So we come from a background, and Delta was tough, and you know this just like I do, what our parents went through, and a lot of issues we have, I believe, right now with young people. They don't know where they come from. They don't know their roots. Because I really honestly believe if they did know their background and know what their ancestors had to go through, they would conduct themselves in a much more dignified manner. And so I that was one of my driving forces for writing this book, was that word hope, to give hope. I wanted my granddaughter to understand that, as I said, she's 5 now. So I'm realistic. So just the thought or idea that I would see her 40th birthday or her 50th is totally unrealistic. So as we were talking the other night, Renita, I tried to write this book as if in a way where I was speaking to her from the grave. Mm-hmm. And that she would be able to look at this book, and each chapter, and you look at, and when you read the book, you'll see in each chapter, I tried to put a life lesson at the beginning of each chapter, and just trying to think ahead about, okay, her name is Amaria, and I wanted Amaria to look at this book and say, wait a minute, I'm going through this, what would my papa do? How did my papa overcome these? And so, and you and I talked about, I know you had shared with me about the story file and electronically how you can do that and pass things on to the generation as well. But yeah, that was my main reason for writing this book, was to give hope to her, to my future, descendants, great grandkids, long after I'm gone, that they would read this and say, wow, if that Ulysses Jack Howard, if our great grandfather Ulysses, it could go through what he went through and make it, then I can get through anything. And so it's a story that's tough, but they always, as the old saying goes, is not how you start the race, is how you end it, how you finish it. And so I try to live my life in a way now that would lead my grandkids and my children to be proud of who they are and where they came from, of their last name. I can't hear you. Can you hear me, Renita? Are you able to hear me?
I can hear you now.
I can hear you now. Yes.
Thank you for doing that, because sometimes I forget to unmute myself.
No problem.
I'm a one-woman show over here, Jack.
I understand.
I'm all over the place. But you totally exemplified this African proverb. And from what you were saying in the back of your book is basically, this is a short version of an African proverb that says, when an old man dies, a library burns to the ground. So what does that mean to you, this proverb?
What it means to me is that a lot of, particularly in Black families, we have so much history and so many wonderful stories. And when the elderly pass on in our family, those stories die with them. I mean, it's just that proverb is just perfectly encapsulate what one of my driving forces for writing this book. Because, you know, I was my father when he passed away, my dad when he passed away 30 years ago, it was instantly. I mean,
Mhm.
it was abruptly. He had a massive aortic aneurysm. So I didn't really have a chance to really sit down with him and talk much about, past and where he came from and all that. Whereas on the other hand, with my mom, when she passed away in 2012, 10 years ago, we knew that she was dying, and she was on dialysis, and she just didn't want to do that anymore. And so the doctor told us to prepare, and we knew that it was a matter of time. And I think she lived about another 3 weeks. So I got a chance to go down to Yazoo City back in 2012 with my other brothers and sisters, and we spent at least 2 weeks there with her. And so during that 2 weeks, Renita, I had the opportunity. I had my laptop, and I would take notes and talk to my mom, and because I just thinking about that proverb. This is the first time I've seen that proverb. You put it up, but I was thinking along that lines and thinking, wow, I need to talk to my mom. Where is she come from? How did she meet my dad? Yeah, that's why I put in the book about,
Right. I love that. I have to tell
you
you,
know,
I love that you did that. I
yeah.
really do.
And so I
Um,
thought it was, my mom's maiden name was Mary Lee Brown, before she married my dad. And so, that's why I entitled that chapter, "Hungry for Brown Sugar, Thirsty for Water, Thirsty for Cold Water, and Hungry for
ah,
Brown Sugar." Well,
yeah.
my dad came in. He came by where my mom was living at the time. She was a young woman in the around 1960, and he was living out in the country in Yazoo County in Benton area. And he kept coming by. He came by the first day and he asked for a glass of water. Then he came back the second day and he wanted another glass of water. And by the third day, my mom told me, she said, I knew then your dad was looking for more than cold water. So there's another
Ah,
life lesson I mentioned in the book, Renita, about having about being determined in terms of your goal and being persistent. Because the Lord knows the God's honest truth is, if my dad had not been persistent and driven, and look, he saw this lady, Mary Lee Brown, she's gonna be my wife, and I'm gonna make her. If he had not been persistent, then obviously I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today. And that's another life lesson I talk about in my book. I talk about the key. One of the keys in life is to be persistent. Whatever it is you want to be, whatever it is you want to achieve in life, whatever your goals are,
mhm.
is to be determined, and not quitting. And so
Right.
I try to, as I said when I wrote it, I tried to speak as if I'm speaking to my granddaughter, who's 5 now again, and as if I'm speaking to her from the grave. And I wanted her to know uh, she can get through anything in life. If we can go through, Renita, what we grew up in, what we faced in the Mississippi Delta, um, Lord knows you can get through anything if you can get through some of the things we went through.
Well, you just gave me a segue into this young man. What can you tell me about this young man?
Wow, that's a great look at those ears, man. I tell you, I recently lost my wife, who's been my Debbie Newton. She lived right where you live. I knew you were raised in Shea Lane. She
Right. Oh my God. Mhm. Mhm. Okay. Let's see. Let me see. Um, let me make sure. Thank you for that, Jack, because okay, that's not good. Okay, let me see what can be going on that we don't have sound. Okay. Go. Okay, keep talking now. And
Yes, yes. And so I think in this particular photo, I was 12 years old, and just a happy kid. It keeps, and we were going through some tough times, but I was always smiling. I was always a happy kid, even though things were, listen, I always tell people this: if you're black and you were born in the Mississippi Delta, more than likely, if you were born in the 50s, or in my case, early 60s, and raised in the 60s through the 70s, then you probably went through some things that you probably reflect back on now. Yeah, someone is saying they can hear me now, so it looks like they can hear us now.
great. Okay, thanks.
Good. So yes, that's what that photo is. I think it was a fifth grade photo, and it was it was a fun time in my life. A lot of up and down the roads and Bramall Park, and just a lot of bicycle riding, and just
Mhm.
happy-go-lucky kid.
Now you wrote in your book about growing up in Bentonia. It was a few years before I think you moved to Yazoo City in 1966.
That's right. We
So
moved.
where was this photo taken? Were you at Yazoo City?
Yeah, I was at Betty Woolfolk Elementary School, which you're probably familiar with. If you're black and Yazoo, live in Yazoo City at that time, you're probably familiar, obviously, with Betty Woolfolk Elementary School. And I think I mentioned in the book at that time. I remember I was in fifth grade, I believe, at that time, and just going through some things at home. And you know, dad was working all the time as he had to. Mom was working all the time because that's what they had to do to take care of seven of us. I went through some things where I was going to school and not really uh, practicing the best of hygiene, and um, and and just as a child, you just don't know. The old saying goes, if you don't know unless somebody really teach you. And
Mhm.
so I went through some things there, a lot of teasing and all that by other kids. And I remember my teacher, and I wrote this in the book, Miss Matthews, Betty Matthews, called me outside one day because the kids would tease me about my hygiene. And I remember those words she said to me. She encouraged me and told me, Ulysses, you can be somebody. Just keep your head up. And it was that point on. After that, I wrote, as I said in my book, uh, even if I had only one pair of underwear, I would
Mhm.
wash those underwear in the sink or wherever, in the bathroom sink, and I would wear those. But I wanted to make sure I made Miss Matthews proud, and that I followed her lead, and that she would be proud of what I had done, not because of the other kids teasing me, but because I wanted to make her happy. That I
Right.
always tell people, the thing is, we just don't know the impact of what we can have on a child just by words, the
Mhm.
words we say, and encouraging them. And I will never forget those words she said to me. She knelt down in the hallway there, and told me I can be somebody, and just to keep my head up, and to stay encouraged. And she made me make a promise that I would try to take better care of myself, and do things. And I
Amazing.
love that, because it was just someone who showed love,
Mhm.
and spent some time just talking to me. And I went back, man. I'm telling you, I wrote a story, and I told about it in the book. Even if I had to wash those couple of pair of underwear I had and hang them on a chair next to the heater in my room, my
I
biggest
did the same thing. I'm sorry. I've got to say, I'm a witness.
yeah, my biggest fear was that
Mhm.
that chair would turn over in the middle of the night, and I would catch the house on fire because of my
Oh my
drawers. I
gosh.
trying to keep those one pair of drawers clean and so I wouldn't be I would keep Miss Matthews proud. But that those are just some of the things. And the gentleman who I wrote in the book, we talked about Mr. Arthur Claiborne and
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Wardia Leach and
Mm-hmm.
men like that, Mr. Woolfolk, who really took time in the community to to encourage young black boys like me and to invite us to play baseball. I talked about this in the book. I remember walking over to that to Campanella
Mm-hmm.
baseball field. Back then they had the swimming pool was there, and I would walk over there, and I know I was peeping through the fence, and I saw these kids who were like my age playing baseball, and I wanted to play, and I didn't have a baseball, didn't have a glove, not a bat or nothing, and I never forget Mr. Claiborne yelling through the fence, said, "Boy, come on over here. What are you doing?" I said, I told him I'm looking. I want to play baseball. I said, but I don't have a glove. And I don't have a bat. My dad got 7 kids, so the likelihood of me going to him and asking him to get one for me at that time, I just didn't even think about that. With 7 kids to feed and take care of, and Mr. Claiborne said, "Don't worry about that. Come on over here." And so I started playing with the Beavers, and that's how.
Oh.
In fact, Carlton
Mm-hmm.
Reeves. In my book, you see the photo, Sam
Mm-hmm.
Claiborne, Buster, his brother Buster, all those guys, man, I remember those guys. And Carlton, it's funny, we still call him Bebe. The man is a federal, federal, federal judge appointed by the president of the United States, Barack Obama at that time. And we still call him Bebe now, he's almost 60 years old.
And
But
he still answers, and
he
that's what's
does, and that
important.
tells me a lot about him and who he
Mm-hmm.
is, and he's just a wonderful. I'm so proud of him. In fact, I mentioned in my book. I talked about what he had done when he sentenced those white guys who killed that black man a few years ago. I don't know if you remember that down
Yes, I
in
do.
Jackson. And these white guys killed this black man, stranger. They didn't know him from nobody. He was in a parking lot in Jackson and putting some stuff in his car, and they hit him with his truck, and they were out what they call nigger hunting.
Yes.
And they killed the man. And Bebe Carlton was the one who sentenced him.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote about that in the book, how proud I am of him. And now, just this week, he was just confirmed. I know he was up for Senate confirmation to be
Mm-hmm.
head of the president's of the U.S. Sentencing Commission, which is just
Right.
a huge. He's the first African American to head that commission. And normally, those people who serve on that commission, in fact, the lady who was just nominated and selected for the Supreme Court served on that very commission. And now our homeboy, Carlton Bebe
Mm-hmm.
Reeves, is chair of the U.S. Sentencing Commission, where Supreme Courts come through there. And so we're just very proud. I'm looking forward to seeing all these folks when I come home. I'll be back in Yazoo City in a few weeks. We're gonna have some fun and do a block party on my old street.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a lot of stories like that. When they say that it takes a village to raise a child, that's not just an old cliche. That is
Mm-hmm.
God's honest truth.
It
Because
is.
my dad with a 6th grade education and mom with a
Mm-hmm.
7th grade education, taking care of 7 kids, they had to work. I mean, it was
Mm-hmm.
what that's like being from Yazoo
Yeah.
City yourself, and so
Mm-hmm.
they had to work. And so thank God we had people in the community who stepped
Yes.
up and who took.
Say that. That is so important, so instrumental, so vital. Your experience is similar to one I've had. Viola Davis, I just read her book. She was talking about her going to school with hygiene problems. And I
Yeah.
mean, her type of poor was so poor that even Oprah called her poor. You know what
I
Oprah went
read
through.
one of the quotes I read when her folks apparently she moved up. And I haven't read her book yet, but I remember I got to get her book. I
You
want to get
got
that
to,
book.
yeah.
But she talked about, I saw an interview or somewhere, maybe it was a written interview. She talked about when they moved from South Carolina up to, I believe it was Rhode Island.
Yes, Rhode Island.
And she
Mm-hmm.
talked about how her and her brothers and sister was eating out of a garbage dumpster, eating
Yes,
out of a garbage can. And you
it
think
was
about, you look at
horrible.
that sister now, Viola Davis, and an Oscar winner. I mean, that's just anytime that sister's in anything, any movie or what, I'm watching it because she's like Denzel. She is just brilliant. And so you
Yeah.
see her and you just the lifestyle she's living now and how she carries herself. And the idea you look back and you think, wow, that sister had to eat out of a garbage
What
can.
an inspiration. And the fact that she didn't think, oh, I don't want people to think this about me, or that she shared it to empower other young people who are going through something in life, that they can get out of it, that you can, have a brighter future, that better days are coming. You
Yeah,
serve no one by not sharing your hard times or your challenges. You don't serve anybody but your own self and your own ego and your
right.
own imagery. It's not helping. We learn more by your trials and tribulations than we will ever learn from your successes, because
Absolutely.
that's what we're facing most of the time. But that woman's poverty, the level of poverty that she was, it was almost worse than third world, because she's talking about covering her head at night to keep rats from
Yeah.
eating her face, and then waking up with her doll's face eaten out because the rats. And I mean, it was just crazy. And then she talked about bullying, in which I know something about bullying. And the one story she told about the teacher letting her out a few minutes early so she could run. I had that experience. So you
Yeah.
can try to get home away from your bullies. But what you and I and her both share is the hygiene kind of thing. But mine was, my hair was not kept. So the teacher actually combed my hair in class before, because I
Yes.
was coming to school with my hair not, combed well. My mom had 6 kids too, so some of us fell through the through the cracks a little with hygiene and all of that,
Of course. Of
so
course.
I share that with you, and thank God that we had teachers in Yazoo City at that time. And I'm not sure what's going on now. I like to think that they're still just as dedicated and caring. But when you come from a small community, and that's one of the benefits we have with growing up in a small community, is that your teachers get to know your family. They know you. They know
Absolutely.
your background. They know your family. You see, so they can fill in the gaps sometimes and help you.
And
So
the thing is, Renita, what you described, what you went through, and how I write about what I went through in my book. And we talk about Viola Davis. And Oprah said, I had a quote that I never will forget, and it's the truth. And she was quoting obviously someone else. She didn't come up with this, but she said, um, what makes steel the toughest, most enduring material ever made by man
mhm,
is the fact that steel is formed through fire. Think about that. You think about how steel is formed and shaped and created. They take this pipe and they put it in the fire.
mhm,
So you think if you can go through your what you went through growing up, Oprah, Viola Davis, and people like that, and some of the things I went through, it creates. If you can go through that and you go through that fire, it's going to make you tough as
yes,
nails. I mean, I I have people who tell me all the time, and I've had the blessing where I've worked for 4 governors now. I've been appointed
mhm,
in 2 different states, 4 different governors, and 2 of whom now are United States senators. And I have people in my corporate, when I worked in corporate America and now in government, who tell me, Jack, nothing seems to phase you. I mean, you don't get rattled, you don't get. I said, you know what? If you had any clue to what I went through, what I had to go through, and growing up in Yazoo City, Mississippi, and the things I
mhm,
had to endure, this whatever we're dealing with, budget issues or whatever it is, my wife used to always say that to me as well. When you're young and we had just got married and the lights about to be cut off, but the lights gonna be cut off because of we couldn't pay the bill. We were in our 20s and I in the Navy and young and just got out of the Navy. And she's like, what are we gonna do? The lights are. I said, look, what we're gonna do is we're gonna light some candles and use some candles until we can pay this light bill. You understand what I'm saying? So when you've gone through what we've gone through, and Oprah, I tell you, I love that quote when she said, when you've gone through these things, you've been through the fire. When
mhm,
you've been through the fire, it creates a steel in you that just drives you. And I'm always working on different projects, and like you have your full-time job, And you also have your side projects you're working on. My wife always says, man, you just do not quit. I said, you don't understand. I can't.
No.
Yeah. I would drive. And that man standing there in that picture to my left, my dad, you read that book, you understand why I couldn't quit. Why there's no quit when you come from that background where you start at 12, 13 years old in the back of a watermelon truck. And then at 13, 14, you start going to the cotton fields and making $8 a day. And you tell that to young people now, Renita, they just find that hard to believe. They just cannot believe that you actually, people went to the cotton fields and were paid $8, $10 a day. But that's what we went through. And so that's what gives me my drive. I thank God every day. I think, when I wake up every day, I'm 59 now, I'll be 60 this year in November. And I know I'm just blessed. I know I'm blessed. I wake up every day and there's my wife always says she knows when I'm up. I get up early, I go to the gym every day, and I play this on YouTube every morning. It is Amazing Grace by Aretha Franklin. She was live at a church in LA, actually, 1972. If you ever Google this and you put in Aretha Franklin live.
I saw that. They did a documentary on that, and they showed her there.
I play that sister, that one, her and the Reverend James Cleveland. He's on the piano. And that's from 19. I play that every morning. Another one I love is Lionel Richie, Jesus is Love. Commodores, those two, particularly the one with Aretha Franklin, because that was my dad and my mom's too. Particularly my dad, Amazing Grace, Precious Lord. And, because I know I look back now and I tell people, and I wrote about this in my book, my neighbors and where I grew up down there, I think most of those people, God bless them, and they didn't mean any harm, but they pretty much probably figured that me, my brother and sisters, and all be either locked up or dead or.
Right.
They just probably figured that was going to happen to these kids. Because, when you read my book, you can see statistically, Renita, I'm not supposed to be here. And as a Black man in particular, after what we all the dysfunction and what we went through,
right?
God is a merciful God.
Yes, He is,
and merciful, and I just thank God for His mercy.
Well, one of the quotes that I really love, I highlighted this quote when you said your dad would say, "There's no time to waste. There's work to be done."
Yes,
and I think that's why you keep going. There's no time to waste. We're not only going to be here for an appointed time.
That's right. Renita, I keep that. I still have that work ethic today. Thank God. In my office building where I work at, the security guards in there in Baltimore, where I work for the governor here, and the security guards in the building really gotten to the point now when they see me leaving, even like 6 in the evening, the guys, they're funny. They start breaking out their phones and their cameras. Oh my God. Assistant Secretary Howard is leaving this building before it's dark today. Get your cameras, taking pictures. I mean, they're just being funny. But, I always say to myself, man, if those guys knew anything about where I came from, they would understand. I'm walking up in here every day with a suit and tie on and, in my position. And I know I'm blessed every day because, I know what my dad went through. He had 2 full-time jobs. Not, most people now, you think about work, they have one, they maybe have one job, they go 8 to 4, 8 to 4:30, then they get off there and they go to another one, maybe 5 to 9. No. That man went in early in the morning, his construction job, he would get off there like 3 or 4, and he would go right to his other job at Jackson Ready Mix, right there in Jackson. And he worked there till like 11:30 midnight. He got up the next day and did the exact same thing. And there's no way I'm going to ever, I tell people that I could never complain about anything when you grow up in a household with someone who has 2 full-time jobs. And then, you would think after working all week long with 2 full-time jobs, you'd think that he'd want to just relax on the weekends and just kick his feet up. No, he would get out there, man, and he sold watermelons, cut grass. He was an entrepreneur, Renita, before I even knew what the word meant. And that's why I'm really, another one of my passions now is helping small women and minority-owned companies. I've gotten I've been blessed enough to get national awards by the governor and others and other people around the country for my work helping small women and minority-owned companies, because I know when they get those contracts, and for us as Black folks, maybe a big company could miss out on $1 million or $5 million contract. It wouldn't hurt them so much. But with us as small Black-owned business people, we don't get that $5 million or $1 million. We can't pay people. We can't send our kids to college. We can't eat. So
Right.
I really have a passion for helping, because I think about my dad, and I know that if he didn't have that extra work cutting yards and selling watermelons, there would be a lot of times that me and my brothers and sisters wouldn't have food on the table. And
And Jack, I really did not know when you said the watermelon man. I remember that. I didn't
yes,
know that was your dad.
oh yeah, that little orange Datsun truck,
Oh my gosh.
and he was just that man. I never seen anybody work like that, man. I talk about it in the chapter. I talk about one of the chapters about his fingernails.
Mm-hmm.
And I never saw my dad's fingernails really clean. The only thing I remember about his fingernails, Renita, is that he worked at that Jackson Ready Mix plant, cleaning those machines at night that produce cement
Mm-hmm.
and bricks and all that kind of stuff. It got the cement got underneath his fingernails, and it was just.
Wow.
And I talk about that in the book, and that was really symbolic of his work ethic, and so also writing a book, I talk about my experience while I was at Mississippi College. My wife went to Jackson State, and I know you went to Jackson State, and I really have a lot of admiration for folks who, there I am right there. It's one of my graduation day. And, at that time, Mississippi College was probably 95, 98% white. And I went through that experience there, going there, where I had these white boys who were obviously racist, who calling the hall phone and knocking on my door at night, and then when I get up to go to the answer the phone in the hallway, because at that time I couldn't afford a phone in my room, because
Right.
I was there only off student loans, and by the grace of God, I was in that school, a private school like that, a great academic school, and they would call my phone, and when I got in there, I was the only Black kid in the dorm. And I would get up and answer the phone. I'm thinking, okay, who's calling me at 2 a.m.? It's got to be something wrong at home. Oh, God, if something happened to mom or dad. So I get on the phone, and all I hear is somebody saying, nigga, get out of here. Nigga, go home.
Oh my gosh.
And that happened a couple of different times. And I was thinking to myself, if those guys had any idea where I come from and what I had to endure, if they thought they were going to just run me out of this school, with a phone call, with a stupid phone call, they would have had to, Renita, and I wrote about this in the book, they would have had to tie me to the back of a pickup truck and drag me back to Yazoo City, because I knew that they wasn't gonna, because I knew that if I could get out of that school and make it through that rigorous academic school program, that God had some plans for me, and so there was no way they were gonna run me out of there. What a phone call? No. And but I had to, I wrote about this in the book. I said, they did it twice. They did it like one night, like 1:30, then maybe about 45 minutes longer later, they did it again, 2 a.m. or so. And I went down the hall and they said it again. And I could see, as I visually want you to see this, I'm walking back to my room, and I could see in the hallway in the dorm that there was a light on under the door, and there was a couple of white guys. I see them in there playing cards. One of the guys was from Tupelo, Mississippi, and I tell people Tupelo, Mississippi is known for two things that I know of. That is the birth of Elvis Presley and the birth of the Ku Klux Klan.
Right.
And so I walked by that door, and I said, you know what? I think it's those guys who are calling that phone and saying that racist stuff to me. So Renita, this is one of those moments I was 20, 21 at that time. I was a junior, I believe, around 20, 21 at that time. And I went to my room, I put on my black boots, and I put on a black overcoat, a black raincoat. I went down to my car, and I got a tire in, the old tire.
Oh my gosh.
And it's shaped, not the kind that's shaped like the cross, it was the one that was kind of bend, the curve. So I wrapped some newspaper around it. And so by the time I wrapped the newspaper around it, It was shaped kind of a curved shape like this, and I put it on
Uh-huh.
my arm, and it looked like I had a. I'm telling you, it looked like I had a sawed-off shotgun in my
Oh
arm.
my
And
gosh.
later, I walked up to the door, and I said to those guys, and they were not making eye contact with me. All they were sitting on the floor. It was like three of them in there, white boys. And all they were doing, they were making eye contact with what I think they thought for sure this Negro got a gun. Oh my God, we're dead.
Oh
And
my gosh.
so I said to him, I said, do you guys have any idea who's calling my phone saying that racist crap to me? And they said, no, we heard the phone ring. I said, because if I had any idea who that was doing that, and pardon my language, this is what I said to them, I would blow their goddamn brains out.
Mm-hmm.
And I turned around and I went back to my room and went to bed. Do you know I never had any more issues out of those guys? One of them ended up nominating me for the student senate
Oh
to
my
represent the dorm in the
gosh.
student senate. Another one nominated me to serve on the student newspaper staff. I got their respect because I think they realized this is a different kind of. We're not gonna run this guy out of here, this young
Right.
fellow out of here with no phone calls. They had no idea what I had gone through to get into that school and what my home situation was. So it was
Mm-hmm.
just another lesson in life. At some point, and I talked about that because I want my granddaughter to know. At some point,
Mm-hmm.
she's especially as a Black woman
Mm-hmm.
and being Black, period, you're going to be challenged.
Yes.
And Renita, at some point, my dad he said this to me, and I didn't understand this until I got older. He said, boy, if you act like a rug, don't be surprised if people walk on you. If you act
Hello.
like a rug,
I like that.
don't
I'm
be
using that.
surprised if people walk on you. And
Mm-hmm.
so I carry that with me now in my job. And because, I'm the only Black assistant secretary for the governor up here where I work for the governor of Maryland up here. And some people who still and this. I mean, you're a Black
Yeah.
female.
I'm sure you on that level, you're going to be constantly watched and challenged for any slip up or anything that can capitalize with getting you out of that position or saying you're not worthy of that position. So,
Renita, let me tell you, and I tell this to my son, I tell this to a young person. I've had young Black folks who work with me, and I get on them all the time, particularly perception is everything. I'm one of these people, I will edit, proof, and read and proof again and email before I hit the send button.
mm-hmm.
Because I know when you're Black, and I talked about this in the book,
Mm-hmm.
you have to be twice as good as people who don't look like you. You have to be
Mm-hmm.
twice as good as them to be considered just as good.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be twice as good, twice as articulate, twice as well read, twice as informed.
Mm-hmm.
Carry yourself. And my job, the white guys, they can get away with coming up in there with sometime with a jeans on and
Mm-hmm.
casual. And I had a white guy say to me the other day, it was a Friday, it was last Friday, and I was kind of dressed like this. It was a casual Friday, so I had a sports jacket, and I had my jacket off. He saw me. He said, "Man, I don't think this is the first time I think I've ever seen you, Assistant Secretary Howard, without a jacket and a tie on." And because I want to carry myself. And when you are Black and you're in certain positions, and this,
Mm-hmm.
it's just going to be a different set of standards for you. And so
Right.
you have to think about that. And, somebody said to me one time, God knows it's true. You can never forget you Black, because
Yep.
as soon as you forget, Renita, the world is going to remind you.
Exactly.
As soon as you forget, the world is going to remind you.
I don't care how high you go.
Yes.
You're absolutely right. You will be reminded.
I remember seeing that
You
with
don't get the
OJ.
same grace for your infractions.
That's right. So I know you had been in LA out there. You and I talked the other night. And I asked you how long you had been in LA. You told me you had been in LA, Los Angeles, since 1984. So I know you were out there, the whole thing, all that stuff was going on with OJ.
Oh yeah.
Simpson. And I remember watching his movie about that experience he went through and the murder charges and all that. And it was like 1969, 1970. He won the Heisman Trophy. And
Mm-hmm.
before he was drafted by the Buffalo Bills in the NFL, and someone said to him, OJ, you're Black. What do you think about some of the civil rights stuff that was going on at the time? And I never forget what OJ Simpson said. He said, "You're black." You know what he said? He said, "No, no, I'm not black. I'm OJ."
Yep.
And I said, as soon as they got him for accusing him of killing that white woman, the society reminded him, "No, no, you black. What? He knows now he's black. I guarantee you."
Mm-hmm.
See, but sometimes in life you have to go through that stuff to remind. Renita, I know I don't need anybody to remind me I'm black. I carry
Mm-hmm.
I have a state, for example, I have a state issued credit card. I would
Mm-hmm.
never use that card for anything beyond what it's supposed to be because
Uh-huh.
I don't even buy a candy bar. I don't do any. I try to keep myself on the straight and narrow because I, like
Mm-hmm.
you said, you're being watched, and I don't ever want to do
Exactly.
anything to embarrass myself or
Mm-hmm.
embarrass my family.
Keep all your receipts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I talk about the value of a good name in the book. That's one of the things I talk about. And my dad, you see in the picture there, uh, one thing he left us was a good name. And that has such value. You know, I would walk around, go around town, and you know this being from Yazoo City. One of the things that people always want to say, ask you, Renita, as you probably remember, as you go around town, you were young, and especially the older people, they always say, "Who are your people? Where are you from? Who are
Mm-hmm.
your people?" You
Yes.
know, because that was their way of sizing you up. There's their way
Mm-hmm.
of saying, "Wait a minute, let me see what stock he comes from
Mm-hmm.
and who where he comes from." And every time in Yazoo City, people would ask me, "Well, who are your people? Where you come from?" And I would say, "Well, my dad's Clarence Howard." What? That's what they would say to me,
Uh-huh.
Clarence Howard. It would always followed by the
I
same
know.
refrain every time. Clarence Howard, that's a hard-working man. That's a good man.
Can anything good come out of what was they say to Jesus? Can anything good come out of Galilee or what was that, Nazareth? He was
Yes,
from?
yes,
Couldn't have been. Is this Mary and Joseph's son?
that's right.
The carpenter?
And then, you know, and I know you're a parent, and so it's always a good thing when your kid comes back to you and they tell you, you know, Dad, or Mom, in your case, you know, I mentioned to some folks who you were and that I was your child, and they you know, that's a good feeling when somebody says that your child says to you, wow, they talk about you were this and that, you were a good person. And when you can pass on, it's one thing. You know, I got friends, Renita, who are rich, who got money, and they
Mm-hmm.
have awful relationships with their kids,
Yep.
and the kids don't show them any respect, and they try to buy their kids happiness and loyalty, but they, you know, travel a lot, they're all the way around the world, they're gone all the time, and so they never spent that quality time with their kids. And they try to make it up through material things,
Mm-hmm.
and that never works in my opinion. And so I thank God my dad, he passed on to us, and my mom too, just hard work. Um, my mom would walk she worked at the Busy Bee Cafe. You probably know, remember?
Oh my gosh, yes. And I have not had a burger like that in my life since the
Yes,
Busy Bee
yes.
Cafe. I'm going to tell the truth.
My mom
Not
used to
one like that since.
my mom used to walk down there, man, and my dad, because of one car we had, you know, he had to use to go to Jackson. He worked in Jackson because as you remember, back in those days, Renita, there wasn't a lot of good jobs in Yazoo City for black folks.
Mm-hmm.
So my dad had to go to Jackson to get his job, and so my mom had no choice. She had to walk, or occasionally she would catch a taxi cab down there, but most times she walked. And that Busy Bee Cafe, man, those hamburgers up in there. Let me tell you something. Those burgers were those are the fattest and juiciest burgers I
Oh
ever
my
experienced.
gosh.
But just the sacrifice they made for us, you know, and I always tell people, when you're a parent, you know what I'm talking about. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
kids, they don't really understand it. They don't appreciate it till they get older, and
Right.
they look back. And I look back now, and I'm sure you think about this too, Renita, being from Yazoo City. I look back now, I'm thinking, my God, how did these people, my parents, my mom and dad with a sixth grade education, mom with a seventh grade education,
Mm-hmm.
how in the world at that time did they take care of 7 kids? And I know it's just by the
Wow.
grace of God. How did they do this? And you know, you have people now with 2 kids. They complain about, man, these kids are this and that. I'm spending all this money. I'm thinking, what? We had 7, and and neither one of my parents even graduated from high school, and but he didn't have a high school diploma but he was as wise as any college professor I ever had.
Wow.
And so I just thank God for it. It really is a great time to be doing this particular show the week before Father's Day. And those are just lessons that I picked up from my dad that will stay with me. And that's one of the reasons, as I said, why I wrote the book. I want to
Mhm.
pass on that history and those types of that character. So my granddaughter, my son, and great grandkids and descendants who are yet to be born will
Mhm.
know, okay, where do we come from? Because, we all go through that and you get older, and a lot of people, they go to ancestry.com and they try to put things together. But, you know, DNA and all that will only tell you so much about who you are. You know what I mean? And so
Right.
you really need to dig into your history. And just I would advise people, and I tell people this: talk to the older people in your family.
Mhm.
Talk to your older aunt. If you got someone older in your family, to sit down next time you come home to Yazoo City or wherever they're living. Sit down, get a notebook, and ask them questions. Okay, how did you meet grandma? How did you meet granddad? Where
Mhm.
did y'all come from? And just write that stuff down, because if you don't write a book, then um, you can at least take some notes. You know what I mean? To
Well, it's so important because um, not knowing where you come from. I mean, I'm just putting the puzzle together of my whole life and just discovering who my biological father is at the age of 60, you know?
Wow.
And and I'm writing something too. I'm not just preaching to the choir, but I'm taking my time writing mine because it is an emotional thing for me. And I have to say that a lot of people have fear about writing anything because sometimes your truth of what you are telling impact other people, and you worry
Hey,
about
look,
them being angry at you or
I
you telling the truth. And then in the Black community, they always tell you, keep family business in the house. Don't go telling. So you learn to shut up and be quiet, and you don't tell your stories. You don't ask anything other than continuing to exist with not knowing your whole self ever. And I think that I got this quote and I love putting this up because people are probably not happy with their lives if they're too busy discussing yours. They need to be writing their own stories and
that's
telling
right.
their own stories instead of gossiping and talking about other people who are trying to get to the bottom and the truth of who they are so they can live whole lives. And you can't live a whole life if you don't have the whole truth of where you come from, right?
That's right. It really is funny you mentioned that, because that was one of the things when I wrote my book. And I thought about that. What you're saying is, I'm gonna make some people in my family gonna be upset if I tell the truth. Are they gonna be mad at me? But
Mm-hmm.
but but also remember a quote that Oprah said, and she said, "Look, you don't allow anyone else to write your narrative, tell your story.
Mm-hmm.
You tell your own story, Renita." And
Mm-hmm.
so, if your story is that you um, did not find out, and that's what you share, and you and I talked about this the other night, you didn't find out until you were 60 years old. You thought your biological dad was one person, and then you
Mm-hmm.
just found out at 60 years old, just a couple of years ago, that it was in fact someone else in town there in Yazoo City.
Mm-hmm.
Then that's your story. Whoever it upsets, you can't worry about. That's your story. That's who you are, and that's where you came from. You want to write that. That's
Mm-hmm.
your narrative. No one else can write your story for you. So no, I that was part of one of my concerns, because the things that I write about, the tough stuff, I was like 12, 13 years old. Like
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
had no control of who your dad was. You just finding it out, but you didn't. Obviously, you couldn't control who would
Right.
be your father. So that's your story, and if you want to write about it, you should, because if
Yeah.
you don't, you'll regret it.
And a lot of people I know are not writing books because um, of the family images they're trying to uphold, you know?
Yeah,
So I have come to the conclusion that I am not going to not live my whole life to hide your lie
right.
and who you think you are.
That's right.
You know, I have to be able to move forward wholly. So the name of my book is Half of Me. That's the name of it. Half of Me.
I love
Finding,
it. I'm looking forward to reading it already.
yeah.
You got to get
So
it
it's a
finished.
lot. I mean, just the decisions that I made in life, not having a father biologically, you know, and then just showing the grace and mercy of God that covered and provided everything for me. When the word says, when your mother and father forsake you, the Lord will lift you up. He did that. I'm a living testimony of that.
Right.
So people don't understand, when you do not tell the whole truth of the depravity of what you were in, you're denying God his glory. So that's the testimony, is that he can raise you out of a miry clay. He can do that.
Absolutely.
But if you're
Absolutely.
trying to look like you were born a shiny penny all your life, who gets the glory in that?
And you know what? And I wrote about that. I talked about it in my book. There is only one perfect being, and that's the Lord Almighty himself.
Mm-hmm.
God knows my dad was not perfect. My mom was not perfect. I'm not perfect. My brother is not perfect. None of my sisters, none of us, no human being is perfect. All right. So those people who may be upset with you because you write but that's your story.
Mm-hmm.
That's your
And I'm
story.
sorry that you happen to be in a relative or in the story.
That's right. But it's who you are. You just found out at 60 who you're real. That you thought for 60 years you thought one man was your father, and you find out at 60 that some. No, Renita, that's one of those stories you have to write about that, because one thing I found is it's therapeutic as well.
It really is.
It's therapeutic, and I talked about the fact that I was 12 years old. I was stealing. I mean, I wrote about that in the book. I was at Gibson department store out there. Went out there to steal me some tire patches, and I ended up getting myself taken down to Yazoo City jail, and they just put me down there to scare the bejesus out of me. I didn't know at the time. Nose was running, snot running everywhere. I was scared to death. And my mama slapped me upside the head and was beating the crap out of me walking from Yazoo City jail to West 6th Street. That woman hit me upside the head with that pocketbook so many times. And then my daddy got me and said, the one thing he said to me, I'll never forget, what you not going to do, you are not going to embarrass my name and this family name, embarrass me and do this. What you're not going to be is a thief. And I'm going to tell you something, Rita, that had an impact on me at 12, 13 years old. Even today at 59, I tell people, I find myself going into a store and I get what we call the professorial, the professor walk. I put my hands behind my back and walk around like the professor, because I don't even want the people to even think I'm stealing. Now, that was the impact that had on me at the time. And that's what I think a lot of young people do not have, that same kind of sternness in their life. So when you make a mistake, right, that you have consequences, you pay for that mistake. And then you realize that's not the right path. Because if I had gotten away with that, if I had not been caught and stole those patches, then listen, and they took me to Yazoo jail, I probably would have did it again, or I probably would have stole something else. You see? And so that's what's going on, I think, with a lot of the young generations now. They're getting away with stuff, they're doing stuff, and there are no repercussions to it. And they just look, when you, like I tell people, I never forget one time my youngest son, he's 25 now. It may have been my youngest son, maybe it was my older one, but I believe in this case it was my young one. We went into a store and my wife was telling me, I think he was like 3 or 4 years old, just picked up some candy. You know how kids are at that age. They don't know, and they pick up stuff and walked out the store with it. My wife, as I recall, told me she took it back and made him give it back and told me it was wrong, because a lot of parents, oh, he's just 3 or 4. No, you have to nip that in the bud.
Exactly.
Because it teaches them, man, that right there, when I stole those patches and ended up down at that Yazoo County jail, Yazoo City jail, and my mom beat the crap out of me. She talked about how she had to leave work. Here I am. Look, think about this. They got 7 kids there, and she got to feed, and she at work at the Busy Bee Cafe, and she got to leave work in the middle of the day to come get my snotty nose self. Nap ahead down there because I want to steal some pack of $2 fire patches.
Oh my gosh!
And then she said, "Well, I had to leave work, and they cut my pants, and she hit me upside the head with that pocketbook." And then my dad came home and beat the crap out of me. And after that, I haven't stolen anything since. That got my attention, I can tell you that.
Well, I can tell you this. You sharing that in your book, letting people know that you did not come in the world educated, um, being an administrator under 3 governors, assistant secretary of administration for the government. I mean, you have the social resume of an elitist, a person who could be snobbish and all of that. You are rolling out all of your warts of your life, starting from that young man over there to where you are now. And I look at that, and then I have to look at this is a man who's now shaking the hands of the president of the United States.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, Renita, because I make it a point in my building and meeting Barack Obama, having an opportunity to work on his campaign and meeting him early on when he was still Senator Obama, and having the opportunity to help him become elected the first Black president. Where I come from and the background I come from, that was just such an amazing story. Because I remember I was telling people I was gonna, at the time I was working for Governor Tim Kaine in Virginia, and Tim Kaine, like Barack Obama, went to Harvard Law School. And at the time, Governor Kaine at the time, was governor of Virginia. And he said, look, and this is like 2006, 2007. He said, look, Jack, there's going to be this guy running for president. I'm going to get behind him. I'm going to support him. And I want you to help me. And I never forget, I was telling people that. I said, okay, governor, I figure, okay, if the governor going to get behind him and help him, then he's got to be a good guy. And I met him. And I said at that time, no, this guy, this is like 2006, 2007. I said, this guy has what it takes. And, but I remember telling some people I was going to help Barack Obama. They're like, what? You think that this country going to elect a Black man from Chicago with an African funny sounding name who smoked 2 packs of Marlboro cigarettes a day? Because at that time he was a smoker. Barack, a lot of people may not know that, but he was smoking. I think Michelle probably finally got convinced him to stop. But he was a smoker, and they said, man, you crazy. And that ain't gonna happen. But he had such a presence about him, Renita, and the way he conducted himself, just a world-class guy. I said, yeah, this guy has what it takes. And boy, that picture there, I think I'm smaller than Barack now. That picture, I was about 45 pounds ago. That jacket was working. Those buttons on that jacket was working. Boy. I got on the scale the other morning, and at that picture, I think I weighed like 235, 240. And I got on the scale the other day and weighed 185. And I tell you, it's a blessing, because I look at that picture now, boy, I was eating up biscuits and everything. You know how we come from Yazoo City, man. I wouldn't eat no oatmeal. We eating bacon and eggs every day. And I know that stuff, that doesn't, you don't live long eating like that every day. But yeah, he's a world-class guy. And yeah, when I look at the picture at the top there at 12, the idea that I'd be shaking hands and helping a guy who become the first Black president in this country. It's just, and I had to put that in the book. I wanted to make sure, because like I say, this book, my granddaughter Maria, who's 5, and my sons and great grandkids one day are going to be looking at this book, trying to figure out who are these people? Who is this Ulysses Jack Howard? Who is my sister Clem, who is so passionate about politics.
Yes,
yes. And I tell people all the time, she got that, it was in her DNA before she was even born, because in June of 1966, Dr. Martin Luther King came to Yazoo City, and I wrote about this, Renita, my mom.
Yeah, that is in chapter, okay, we've gone through chapter 1, My Dad's Gone, and that was really, that had me in tears. And I love the way that you immediately, because of the training that your dad instilled in you, you knew your position to play in your family. Normally when dad and mom die in families, people just fall apart. It just brings out the worst in some people if the family have not already been prepared, nurtured to know their position and respect each other's position. And one thing I want to say, from this book and just knowing you guys in general, you're a very close-knit family. And I just admire that, the way that you guys love and respect and support each other as a family. And that definitely came from what your parents must have instilled in you. But you immediately had your moment and said, okay, I got to pull myself together. I got to assume my position. I know I need to go and do what I need to do to support my family and play. So that was just a beautiful illustration in this book that we can all learn from. What families do, not fall apart when mom and dad die and fight over stuff. And everybody, the most important thing is, what can I do to support my family to get through this and honor the memory of my dad and my mother.
Absolutely, Renita. That is the God's honest truth. Because listen, I went through the fire, and what I growing up in the household, and the experiences I had, and negative and positive, but they were with my brothers and sisters. So we all went through it together. And so, yes, that was something that brought us closer. And we're actually gonna be coming back down to Yazoo City on 4th of July weekend. On that Saturday, we actually gonna have a big block party at the old at the street where we at 356 West Street, 6th Street, where we
Look, you don't want to have the whole city down there, so you might not want to.
I know.
You might not want to be putting that out there yet.
Yeah, that's right.
It's invitation only. It's invitation only.
Yeah, we're gonna have food and everything. Listen, I'm at the point now. Whoever shows up, we'll have enough food. We'll run out of food, we're out. But we just want to come back and give back. We want to do something there and give back. And we're gonna have bouncy house out there for the kids and food, and it's just gonna have a good time. We just want to come back from. I'm telling you, Renita, God knows it's the truth. Well, we were raised on what I went through there. Most people predicted that I and probably my brother and sister probably all be either locked up or dead by now, because they just, you know how it is, man. You look at when you look at statistics, you look at stats.
Yeah, that's true.
Going through what we went through statistically, I'm really not supposed to be here. That's what they say. Stats and God's statistics can't have anything when it comes to God's grace.
Say that. God's say that again. Say that again.
Yeah, statistics don't mean anything. It's like Oprah said at some point. I love quoting Oprah because she's a homegirl from Mississippi, and she's just so deep. But she said something. She said, at some point in your life, you have to stop blaming where you are in the present place in your life about what happened to you when you were 12. You're 50-something years old, and you still doing, I'm this or I'm that. I'm a drug addict, or I'm homeless and this and that because something happened to me when I was 12. No, at some point, you got to take some responsibility for your own actions. And one of the things I talk about in the book too is, Renita, is Black folk, for some reason, we see it as some kind of a phobia against getting counseling and going to see a psychologist and all that. It's like when your body is aching and you having some health issues, you go to a doctor. Well, if you've gone through the things we've gone through, a lot of the dysfunction and stuff we've gone through, been deprived of certain things, you need to talk to someone about it. There's nothing wrong with going to see a counselor, because a lot of times people keep this stuff bottled up inside of them, and it's going to display itself one way or the other through drugs, alcohol, or whatever. Or if you don't talk to someone and see a counselor and just get some help to deal with it, because there's no way the stuff we go through, particularly growing up in a lot of dysfunction, a lot of racism in a place like Yazoo City, what I went through at least, and not have it scar you in some way if you allow it to, and for life it could, and so there's no bitterness. And I had a friend of mine who called me, a white guy. This guy is a multi-millionaire, successful businessman, Jewish guy, and he called me after reading my book. And he was in tears. Because he sees me now, and I have on a jacket and a tie every day and try to carry myself in a professional manner. But he had no idea what I'd gone through. And I told him he was in there, and this is a hard-nosed business guy, very successful. And he said to me, he said, "Jack, man, I finished reading your book. I just I wrote a little note to him. I autographed it to him. And he said, I read your note. He said, man, I was just in tears. He said, just what you went through, I just had no idea. And it really is, if you're going to inspire other people, Renita, like you say about reading your book, writing your book about what you just learned who your real biological dad is. That really, that's another reason I wrote the book as well. I talk about the word hope and about teaching my granddaughter about where she comes from and about her background, but I also wrote the book to, hopefully it will be an inspiration. It will help people who are who have their own hill they've got to get over in life, who are dealing with their own challenges, who, in your case, for example, who just found out who their real father is at 60 years old. I want them to.
Let's say 59.
59.
Yeah, a couple of years ago.
And I want them to, that's right. And I want them to read my book and think, okay, if he can go through what he went through, God knows. If you can see a Viola Davis, my God, man, this woman is an Oscar-winning actress, brilliant. And then they realized she, at early on in her life, her and her brother and sister was eating out of a garbage dumpster. I mean, terrible. And you realize why that sister's so brilliant. She's that, listen, you as well, my sister, you have been through the fire. You have made of steel now. There ain't nothing going to stop you from whatever it is you want to do in life. You're gonna achieve it. You're gonna at least, or as I tell people, you're gonna either gonna achieve it or you're gonna die trying.
That's right.
So we've been through the steel. We've been through the fire. And so that's why I hope when people will pick up my book. And also I want people to know, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, Renita, what I did was I established a nonprofit foundation called the Clarence and Mary Lee Howard Foundation, Charity Foundation. I just set it up a couple of months ago. I'm getting it 501c3 certified by the IRS. So every dime that I make from this book is going to go to that foundation.
That's awesome.
And I'm going to be giving things back. I want to give things back. In fact, when I come down there I'm already making arrangements. When I come down to Yazoo City, 4th of July weekend, I'm going to get 10 computers, laptop computers that I'm going to get through a program. And I'm going to take those home and give them out to some families. And I know my good friend, Gloria, Elaine Owens is on there. I'm going to talk to Elaine.
Her and Lifesavers.
Yes, try to identify. What I want to do is I want to identify 10 families down there who don't have, the whole digital divide issue, and who don't have computers. If I can donate those computers down to some families down there. And so those are the kind of things I want to do through the Clarence and Mary Lee Howard Foundation. I want to come back and do some things and give back and try to be a positive on the people who look like I did, the young people who are there now. You see that 12-year-old kid up there, boy, that was me. God knows if somebody could, there were people who did things for us, but if someone could give me a computer or whatever, clothes or whatever they could give, I would be eternally grateful. So that's one of the things I'm going to do with our foundation. We're going to give back.
That's
build
awesome.
A legacy.
That is awesome. A legacy of giving.
Yes.
Giving back. So we went over, because we're not going to go through the whole book, because the book club, that's our job to do this. We're here to just get his perspective of why he wrote the book, what his motivation is.
And it's available on Amazon, by the way, Renita.
Yep.
I don't know if
it's on the link. Yep, I got it on the link.
That's right. You did put the link out there.
It's on the link. So we're just lucky, I should say fortunate, that you're on here with us to talk about it and go over it and discuss it. And this is just invaluable to have an author here with you to go over his work and not have you guess and wonder what was he thinking and why did he write. You're here to tell us. So that's really good. But we're going over the first 4 chapters. But like I said, in chapter 1, Daddy's gone. Everybody would, oh my gosh, just to get that phone call. Me living away from my hometown, every time my family calls, my heart drops.
Yes.
So it's just kind of scary. And I had to tell my family, stop calling me during certain hours. Because
it scares you, right?
It's scary. Yeah, if you're calling me and it's 9 or 10 o'clock, I'm like, what is going on? Yeah. And then I had to tell people to stop emailing me bad news in the middle of my workday, because when I open my email, I'm at work. And of course, I got to leave now because I can't, I'm just upset. So what I've asked is that if you email me, can you use an emoji? give me a forewarning of what I'm getting ready to open. So have a happy emoji if it's good news. If it's sad, I won't open it at work.
There you go. There you go.
It's, I know people don't think about that. They just want to reach out and tell you. I don't care what time of night it is. They'll call you and let you know somebody in passed, and you can't do anything about it, and you definitely can't go back to sleep after that.
That's right. That's right.
So I think I would try to just let people know in the morning.
I'm the same way.
So, but when you got that that call, and it happened to be on my birthday that your dad passed.
Oh, January 17th,
Me and Michelle Obama, born on the same day. Muhammad Ali, yeah. So, yeah, when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah, that's my birthday.
January 17th. That is amazing.
Yep. That's amazing. And then the next chapter that you shared, that was chapter 1, Daddy's Gone. And then the next chapter was Thirsty for a Glass of Cold Water and Hungry for Brown Sugar. That was the love, the courtship of your mom and dad. Right. And then the last chapter that I got to, that we're going to stop at, is, chapter 3 and 4, which we can combine, because chapter 3 was very important, because it talked about the life and growing up in the South, in Mississippi, and you touched on a lot of historical tragedies, white supremacist terrorist acts against Black people in the South, from Emmett Till on. And you also mentioned my buddy Jerry Mitchell, who is such an ally to the Black community, and people just don't realize what an ally Jerry Mitchell and Willie Morris, who wrote Northward Home, was to the Black community. Because I think it's been whitewashed, especially Willie Morris's part when he wrote that book, North Toward Home. He called out the white community.
And Jerry Mitchell, at that time, I quoted in my book, Jerry Mitchell was a reporter with the Clarion Ledger newspaper, and he wrote about how many church bombings and terrorist acts, basically direct domestic terrorism that was targeted toward Black folks. And you told me you had interviewed him on one of your segments, and I didn't know he was still a reporter. So this was the 60s. And I know I can imagine he got a lot of death threats and everything else.
He wrote a book, which I recommend people to get. It's called A Race Against Time. And he goes over 4 instrumental cases that his investigative reporting helped solve, including bringing the killer to Medgar Evers to justice.
Yep. So, he talked about, and that one of the reasons I mentioned that in the book, because I wanted my future descendants to understand, young people who is in the family now, to understand what we went through, what that time was like. It wasn't all, you see TV now, you see Mayberry and Anna Griffin, everybody smiling and grinning. Well, it wasn't like that for Black folks. People were bombing and terrorizing people, and Dr. King came to Mississippi, and I put that quote in there. He talked about that when he came up to Philadelphia. He came to Philadelphia, Mississippi, the day before he came to Yazoo City, and when he was there talking about the fact that they had murdered Goodman, Cheney, and Schwerner. The Black young fellow who was down, and the 2 white kids who came down from the north, Jewish kids who came down to help raise the Black folks to vote. And they killed him in Neshoba County, Philadelphia, Mississippi. And Dr. King came there, and he talked about that, how he was terrified. The guy who wrote the book talked about Dr. King was praying right there in Philadelphia, Mississippi, on the street and near the courthouse. And he said, he was speaking to the crowd. He said, I believe the killers of these 3 young boys, these 3 young Goodman, Cheney, and Schwerner, are somewhere right near us, probably right now. And the sheriff of that county uttered the word, said, yeah, we standing right behind you right now. And so, can you imagine, man, you there, and you, Dr. King at that time, 37 years old, young Black minister, and you hear those words and threats. And so, yeah, he went through it. And so the next day was he came to Yazoo City. That was the next day he came to Yazoo City in June of 1966. And that had a profound impact on my mom, because that was the moment she told me this story before she passed, that she was encouraged at that moment to go up to Yazoo City Courthouse on Broadway and register to vote. There it is right there. She went up there on that day and registered to vote. And at that time, as I said, my sister Clem, who was born in August of 1966, she was 7 months pregnant with my sister when she went up,
Wow.
my sister Clem, when she went up to vote. And it was just, those are the kind of stories that Renita, I had to write a book. There's no way I could have those kind of stories in my family and know about those kinds of stories and not put those in the book so that my kids, Clem's kids, other nieces and nephews would know that, and my mom talked about that. She said she was scared to death. But Dr. King came and spoke and encouraged them and gave them some, courage and motivated them to go and register to vote. So we've got some just fascinating stories that come out of Yazoo City, out of our hometown, and we gotta put those stories in a book and memorialize them for future descendants, future generations.
And they have to be encouraged and want to know it.
Yes,
We have to come up with platforms that engage our students to want to learn it. As much as
yes,
we highlight sports and all of that, we need to make it engaging, give them opportunities to engage in this history, to know it.
absolutely.
And that's going to be a community effort in doing that.
I really believe that as well, Renita, because I believe, I said this early on, but I believe that if a lot of these kids knew where they come from and who they were and the roots, I just think it would change their whole behavior, how they would pull their pants up and they would conduct themselves in a different manner. And I just think that they would carry themselves in a more dignified, they'd have more self-respect for themselves and value human life. Because, I know in Yazoo City, I mean, I read the stuff and keep up with, man, it is just, it's amazing. I read the stories now. There were just more killings down there. It was like Chicago. I mean, in Yazoo City now, apparently, from what I'm reading, it's just seems to be out of control and there are too many guns on the street. And a lot of these kids just don't value life anymore.
No.
I mean, you kill somebody over because they stepped on your foot. I mean, they just don't have, they don't value life anymore. So I wanted to put this and put my book, memorialize it and memorialize all these stories. And before I get older, and none of us live forever. And so I wanted to put them in a book and so that my future generations can know where we come from. And hopefully it'll be a guide for them and give them a sense of pride,
Well, definitely. I think that most Yazooans, you need to purchase this book. You need to buy it for your grandkids because there's a lot of history in here about Yazoo City.
Yes.
With all of this CRT, critical race theory, them not wanting to tell the truth, is more important than ever that we speak our truths, that we tell our individual truth. If you got time, and like small towns do, to go around and gossip and talk about everybody else, talk about your business. Let your kids know. Talk about business that's important. Okay? Like you said, most kids don't know who they are, where they come from, any of that. They have nothing to latch on that connect them to humanity. So they don't value life at all. If all you think is I was born to live, drink, get high, party, and die.
Yeah.
That's it.
And it's funny. I've said that to my own son, my 25-year-old. I've said it to my older son, my 33-year-old. Sometimes, kids when they're young, you have to. And I said, "What if you had any idea who you were and where you came from, like my dad and the lineage, the black man you came from, you wouldn't be doing what you're doing. You would conduct if you had any idea." I said, "My God, man, that's why I tell them. That's one of the reasons I wanted to write this book because I want them to read it and understand where they come from, and it'll give you." Your head, Dr. King had a quote. He said, "It's hard for someone to ride your back if you're standing up straight. If your back is straight, it's difficult for someone to ride your back. It's when you're slumped over and you have no dignity, and that's when somebody can ride your back. If you're a man with a straight back, if you're standing up straight, it's hard to ride your back when you're standing up straight."
And exactly. And this is what our young people need to understand. That was a part of those who brought us over here to enslave us. The first thing that people want to do when they want, and Hitler did the same thing, they want to dehumanize you. That's the first step in the process of
Absolutely.
enslaving you, is to get you to accept that you are a slave, that you are who we say you are. You're not human. You're a beast of burden. So the first thing they're going to do is strip you from your humanity by dehumanizing you. And that comes, number one, with wiping out your memory base of who you were. If you were
Right.
a king in Africa, a prince in Africa, or whatever, all of that goes away. They strip you away from, they take your identity and redefined you. And you're helping them whenever you're not educating yourself to find out your truth. Knowledge
Renita,
make knowledge makes make a man unfit to be a slave.
there you go. Renita,
Okay?
you just summed up why people ask me, why, how did you come up with that title, Don't Call My Daddy Boy?
Mm-hmm.
You just summed up why I came up with that title. One of the things was I had the experience going through in a store in Yazoo City, and guy was about to call him. I knew that's what he was going to do. But it's that one word, what you just described as God's honest truth, because it's that one word, boy. That's how they would take black men. I don't care if you had in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, even before then, 30s, however long ago back in that time. If you were a black man like my dad with a sixth grade education, or if you were a black man with a PhD from Harvard and your name was W.E.B. Du Bois, or whoever you were, Dr. King, or people with a PhD, it didn't matter. I don't care if you were Shoeshine Boy or Dr. Martin Luther King. They sum you up with one word. That one word was meant to demean, to tear you down psychologically, and that one word was boy. That was their way. What you just described is what the white society at that time in Mississippi used, that one word. It was not sir, it was not any of that. It was boy. Boy. And that's how they called Dr. King. Even this man was obviously one of the greatest human beings who ever set foot on this earth, and what he was able to do and sacrifice his life so that we could have more freedom we have here. Or if you were whoever you were at that time, they used that one word to try to tear you down. It was meant to, it was just a cruel and sadistic way of destroying black men.
Your pride, your worth in front of your family, to let your kids see you're nothing, your wife see you're nothing. I can do, all of that to dismantle black malehood.
And I talk about that, the black man in Yazoo City, the Arthur Claibornes, the Wardell Leach, and those guys who really gave back to their community and gave back to their families and tried to make our hometown a better place to be. Those are not boys. Those are black men who gave every ounce of their soul and their life to try to improve the community and try to pass something on to us. So that was one of the reasons don't call my daddy boy. I tried to sum it up in that, because he was not a boy. He was a man who gave everything, and all those other black men. It wasn't just him. I just happened to be the son. He just happened to be my dad, and what he went through. But yeah, a lot of black men down there who were just like my dad, hardworking, and a lot of people out there in the audience now who are watching this probably can relate, because they had dads who was just hardworking men. They didn't have no lot of Esquire behind their name, or PhD or MBA or none of those fancy titles. They were just hardworking, good men who tried to give back, who tried to make their families and their communities better. So yeah, that was a part of some of the things, and he shared with me. And there's some stories, I mentioned this in the book, how my dad he bought a brand new 1978 Buick LeSabre. And I never could figure out why he would never drive that car. I talked about this in the book. And he would never drive that car to Jackson to his job. And I said, Dad, why are you driving that old beat up Biscayne?
Oh, yeah.
We call it the Batmobile in the car. And I said, man, why are you still driving that old? Or he would drive his orange Datsun truck later in the 70s. I said, why are you still driving that? Why don't you drive your new car? He said, boy, you don't understand. This is in the 70s. He said, my gosh, if I drove that car down there, I wouldn't have a job the next day. I said,
what? Oh my gosh.
And he said, you don't understand. He said that white superintendent on that job, he was probably thinking, if you can afford a car like this, you don't. Black folks at that time, Renita, your parents and your folks had to go through it. You had to walk that tightrope because there's certain things it affected you even to the point of, where he couldn't even feel comfortable driving a brand new car to his job that he paid for and that he earned. And I just didn't understand. But now I look back now and I got it. And he talked about the Sovereignty Commission. I wrote about that in the book.
Mm-hmm.
They had the Mississippi Sovereignty Commission where they would have domestic spies who would spy on people in the community, and black ministers were part of that. Some of them were black ministers up in the Delta who would tell them, if your parents or your uncle or somebody was helping black folks register to vote in the 60s, they had people who would call down there to the office, the Mississippi Sovereignty Commission, and report to your people that they were down there helping these Negroes register to vote and all that stuff. I mean, it was just, you look back and say, could that be really in America? Then we look today and yes, it can, because they try to bring it back. A lot of the nationalist stuff, white supremacy stuff.
Well, there were black people who worked with them.
Yes.
And that's why, I tell kids today, all skin folks ain't kin folks. Don't let somebody fool you to think they're for you just because you share the same skin color. I am allies and brothers and sisters with anyone who share the same heart condition that I have. Okay? Not skin color, heart color.
Hey, look, are so.
Because I've seen too much deceit in the office, and what you spoke on about what your dad taught you, that was a valuable lesson I had to learn. And my mother-in-law comes from the same school of thought that your dad come from, because she's in her 80s, late 80s now. She's quick to say, don't bring these people over here. They see what you got, they're going to get jealous and they want to. It happened.
Absolutely.
It happened, because you're not supposed to have more than certain white people with that mindset.
That's right.
Not all white people, but some white people with that mindset that we're talking about. You can't have more than them.
Hey, look, Renita, it's some people who look like us who got that same.
Exactly. That's what I said. All skin folks ain't kin folks.
Because my dad said that. I said, well, what about the black folks who work on your job? Wouldn't they be happy to see you, Dad, with a new? He said, boy, what?
Nope. They're jealous too.
It's just like it reminds me of that quote, Thurgood Marshall. When Thurgood Marshall was retiring in the early 90s, I believe it was like 91, when he retired from the court. He was older by the end of his 80s and his health wasn't as good. And the reporter asked him, he said, well, Justice Thomas, would you like to see a black person replace you on the Supreme Court? At that time, George H.W. Bush was president. And he said, wouldn't you like to see a black person replace you on the Supreme Court as a justice? He said, well, let me tell you like this. A black snake is just as bad as a white snake. Thurgood Thomas didn't miss no words.
I love him,
that man went through the death threats and all that stuff he got going back to 1954, Brown versus Education, everything he went through. But he told the truth. He said, look, a black snake is just as bad as a white one.
Amen.
And you're right. It's not necessarily. And my dad talked about that with the car. I said, what about the black guys who work on your job in Jackson? Won't they be? He said, what? He said, they'd probably be the worst one to go tell the white man. Glance out there, got that new car. I'm just telling you, man.
He knows it. Yeah, so I don't look for my allies in skin color.
Yeah, exactly.
I look for them in the heart actions, what their intentions are. And that's the way that God looks at us. Not
Absolutely.
by what we're pretending we are. First of all, God can't bless who you pretend to be, so stop it. He already knows who you are. Be who you are, okay? And then if you're not up to that level, ask for grace and mercy and try to do better. But stop pretending, okay?
That's right. That's right.
God looks at your heart, not your skin color.
And everybody out there, and you're right, Renee, everybody out there don't have your best interest in mind.
That's right.
Black and white, some of them, they just hating on you and just, and I'm just, it's
amazing. It's a lot to overcome, but you have overcome so much, and we have to get this book, you guys. we have to get this book. I'm looking for a co-host to come on with me when we do the next few chapters we're going to go over. So drop your name in the comment box if you're interested in co-hosting with me and co-hosting a few chapters. You pick a few chapters you want to come on and talk about, and then we'll have you on to talk about that.
I'd
But
love to give a couple of autographed copies to a
yes,
couple
we're
of
going to be
listeners
giving
too.
out autographed copies. So if you
Absolutely.
become
I
a
want to give.
co-host, the co-hosts get the autographed copy. How about that?
So you tell me who I send it to. If you send me a note, I have
Okay.
2 copies of the book I've ordered, and I got them for your listeners, Renita. You're
Okay.
doing such a wonderful
I
job
think
here.
I'm going to give them to the people who volunteer to co-host.
Okay. So you let me
They'll
know,
have
and I'll
it.
ship them out to you, or you ship them directly to them, or however way you want me to do it, and I'll be
Yeah.
glad to do it.
So we're going to do that. So we got some autographed copies for those who want to co-host. So let's go over. So you went over the whole Emmett Till story. I couldn't. Oh my gosh. That was a lot. That was a lot. And then the 4th chapter, moving to the big city, just as MLK came through. You guys had moved to Yazoo City by then. You talked about moving to Yazoo City, and it was like the big city for you.
Absolutely. It was. Hey,
They
look.
had street lights and everything. Neighbors right next door to you. You were like, there are people in houses next door.
Hey, look, when you're out there, what my mom just called, they call out there in them hills in Benton, and you don't see nothing, you see more cows than you see human beings. And all of a sudden you get to the city, you see all these lights and street lights and all that. I tell you, Renita, yeah, it was like moving to New York City for us, even though it was coming to Yazoo City. It was just such a joy and a new experience for us. So yeah, I was a little kid at that time, and boy, we didn't have a whole lot, but I remember those days. There was a lot of joy. My sister and I, and Thelma and Clem, and my other sister, we always talk now, Christine and my sister Louise, we talk about those days going to the cotton fields and getting up in the morning. And in fact, the lady, my sister Clem used to go to the cotton field with, lived in Shea Lane. And she drove a car, and all the kids couldn't get in the car. And my sister Clem and some other people would ride in the trunk of this woman's car from your old neighborhood, Renita, from Shady Lane. They would pick my sister and some other, my cousins, George and all of them, George Jr., they would pick them up at the corner of West 6th Street and what is now Martin Luther King Drive. Used to be Chambliss Avenue, whatever it was back then. They would pick them up there, and they would ride all the way to the cotton fields out in the county, Renita, in the trunk of a car. Now I was on the back of a truck, Mr. Fletcher down the street from us. But my sister and the rat, can you imagine that? 5 in the morning, them kids, 13 years old. That's how bad they wanted to work and make money. Riding in the back, in the trunk, hanging out of the trunk of a car, Renita, going out to the cotton fields at 13 years old, trying to make some money.
Wow.
I mean, it's just, those are the kind of stories, man. When you go through that kind of stuff, it's like, you can never forget where you come from. And
exactly.
I think about those moments, Renita, and those are the kind. That's my wife, Debbie. Yes, her.
Yep. I had to. I'm getting to that part with our wife because we're gonna be closing on these last, because we've dove into all the heavy stuff, and I like to end on a lighter note. And it always, the lighter note of love and hope is always with family for me. And what you've gone on that journey, and because people got to go and buy this book and read the rest of the other stuff, because there's so much more. We just really did a little review of what you wrote, but it's so much in there that have historical value that young people need to read this. So I'm just challenging the adults: get a copy for yourself, get a copy for your grandkids, so they can read this history. What he wrote is just as important as what Willie Morris wrote when he wrote My Dog Skip about growing up in Yazoo City. It's the same thing, but it's from a Black perspective, from a Black man's perspective. So I think that all children, Black and white, should be reading this, because I thoroughly enjoyed Willie Morris's book. My Dog Skip was one of my favorite books because it made my hometown come to life for me in a way that I never thought about. And he made it somewhat enchanting in a way that I knew the locations that he was talking about I could relate to. So it just really made my reading more of a journey, a pleasurable journey, discovering my hometown through the eyes of someone else that had a different perspective that I needed, because it gave me some sense of pride. you know, and like your book is, there's some pride in, even though it was horrible growing up in segregation, there was a kindness of school teachers in the community that cared about you, you
Right.
know. So it's always something good to be found in that, you know. God don't leave you with just struggle, you know.
You,
There's
you know,
something.
you know, Renita, what you just said was just, you hit the nail right on the head. They're just, when you think about where Yazoo City and where we're from in the Delta, and now I look back now, I realize why there's such great writers that come out of there, Willie Morris and some of the other great ones who, Eudora Weldy,
Oh
uh,
yes.
you know, those kinds of writers who come out of there, because you think about that, where we're from, it is tailor made to produce great writers because of the stories, because of, you know, just the history of it. And my hope is that, you know, regardless of whether you're from Yazoo City, Mississippi, or you're from out where you are. I've had people, by the way, Renita, my sister lives in California, Clem, and I've had my brother-in-law Timmons out there, and then people who out in LA who read the book and who sent me messages, and people from New York to, in fact, a guy in London sent me a note who I met through business contacts, and they talked about how it inspired them, because they had no idea. You know, they see me and I'm got this fancy title in government and all these people I've worked with, and they have no idea my story of what I went through.
What a testimony. What a
They tell me all
testimony.
the time. They tell me, Jack, it's just so inspiring. That's what I'm hoping that people will get from this book. Is, I said to you early on, if I could sum it up in one word, it would be hope and inspiration, that they would be inspired to think, my God, if that guy, Ulysses Jack Howard, can get through what he went through, I can make it. I can get through whatever it is. You know, whatever I'm going through. It's just, and that's why I'm telling you, I tell people out there, man, I pray. I know I mentioned this in the beginning, maybe it was on mute, but I want to repeat this. And every morning when I wake up, I click on YouTube, and I want people, if you go to YouTube and you put in YouTube, Aretha Franklin, Amazing Grace Live, and you're going to see her in 1972 perform Amazing Grace. And it's been done so many times by so many different great singers, but that is my favorite. She did it live at a church where you are right there, Renita, in 1972 with Reverend James Cleveland. I listen to that every morning, because if you read my story, you will understand why I, you know, those words, Amazing Grace, I once was lost, now I'm found, was blind, but now I see. And my dad, you listen to that story, and you know, I'm just at that stage of my life where I try to be just at the top of my game, spiritually and physically, trying to take care of myself and just trying to be the best version of me that I can be, so that I can pass that on and try to achieve something that I can leave behind for my grandkids and my, you know, great grandkids, and those who, as I said before, who are yet to be born. And so I just want my story to just live on and hopefully inspire people. That's all I want. I want people who read this book to, if they're looking for something that will encourage them and get over that mountain of despair. They went through some things. You shared your story. You've been very open about your story, Renita, about, you know, finding out who your real dad was at 59, 60 years old. And whatever it is that's going on with people, I just want my story to inspire people, not only my own family members, obviously, but others who may be going through certain things, that they will look at it and say, yeah, if he can make it, if he can get through that, then certainly I can as well. So that's my hope.
Amen. And that's where God gets the glory, because I know where your source came from. And
Yes.
that's and the inspiration was from your father and mother, who passed that on to you, and then you're passing that on. And that's why I understand what God would tell them, to tell the next generation. Repeat how I brought you out of Egypt. Tell them
Yes.
how I departed you. We have to pass this oral history on, because we see that we can't depend on the government to even teach the true history of
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah. And you know, my book, I guess, based on this stuff, when I'm hearing from some of these Republicans, these people, because my book is the truth about what happened in Mississippi, and they probably would, maybe they'll ban my book because they don't want to. it's like right now, they don't want anything that talks about the fact about segregation or slavery. It's like the most, and the scary part about that is if you don't teach kids, these little kids, this, you don't be surprised if a kid 8, 9 years old, white kid, you look up and they're calling the kid the nigger and all that stuff, because they have no, if they don't have a sense of history and how, where we came from and all that, they're doomed to repeat it. You know, if you have to teach these kids, but they don't want anything, they don't want anything taught about segregation, slavery, but it's real. It's what we went through, but it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. I don't know where we're going in this country. It seems like we're going backwards.
Well, they wanted to go back to when we were great.
Yeah.
And what year was that? What century was that for us?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, but there's an African proverb that says, until the lion learns how to write his own story, his state of being will always be described by the hunter. Okay?
Right.
So if the hunter say you're fine, that's what you are.
That's
until
right.
you start writing your own stories and telling your own truth, telling the truth. Because it ain't, it is not your truth, my truth. I'm talking about definitive truth, not
Absolutely.
relative truth. I'm talking definitive truth. Okay. And there's a difference. Relative truth is if you go outside in the rain, you can get wet. Well, yeah, but you cannot get wet if you got an umbrella. So it's relative to if you're dressed properly, you might not. But the definitive truth is if you go outside in the rain and you don't have anything, you're going to get wet.
That's right.
That's definitive truth. So David, you got to know the difference.
That's right. David has some, and speaking of that, what you're saying is so true, because Fox News had a contributor on there not too long ago. They're trying to teach that slavery wasn't so bad, that they treated them well. And let me tell you something, man. I went to, they have in Baltimore here, I haven't had the fortune yet to go to the Smithsonian African American Museum in DC yet, which I'm looking forward to. And also when I go home to Mississippi at 4th of July weekend to Yazoo City, we're going to go, my family, my sister and I have been talking about this, brother, we're going to go to the Civil Rights Museum in Jackson.
Oh, great.
And they have one here called the Great Blacks and Wax Museum in Baltimore. And I went there. And they show, and when I heard that about this Fox News contributor trying to say that slavery wasn't that bad, and then I went to this museum, and they had a real, authentic slave chain that they would use to put around the slave's neck. And I'm telling you, Renita, that thing must have weighed 60 pounds, because they would use it to cuff the man. So, and then they would pull from each side to keep his head up straight when they were selling him. He was being auctioned off. And I'm thinking the brutality of that, where we were treated like animals. Then they have someone try to come back and with revisionist history and try to tell us, oh, slavery wasn't that bad. You know, the Southerners, they treated the blacks well and they fed them every day like we were animals. I mean, it's like saying, they treated us well. That's like saying, well, my dog, I treat him well. I keep him out there in the outhouse, but he gets fed, a couple of times a day. It's the most bizarre thing what we're witnessing here in this country now. But I just want my people in my family and others who, if they would feel so, they feel like they want to learn something, I would hope that they would purchase the book and that it would inspire them. There are books in life that I've read that will change your life. Yes. I remember the place I used to go for refuge when everything was going on in my household and things were kind of crazy and a lot of dysfunction and a lot of racism stuff going on. It was at the Ricks Memorial Library.
Me too. I was getting ready to say it. That was my hangout.
Absolutely. Well, I can tell. All day. Clear. I can tell, my sister, it's clear. You doing your thing, working at University of Southern California, and you've been out there for years. It's clear. And I always tell young people, reading is to the mind as exercise is to the body. Reading is to the mind, because the brain is nothing more than a muscle. And the way you exercise that muscle is through reading. I mean, you have passive, you can do this passive brain exercise stuff and sit and stare in front of a TV every day. Or you can exercise that brain and read, and reading is to the brain as exercise is to the body. And boy, I used to read that. I would go down there and read books, and it really encouraged me. And there's some books, if you read, spend time, that could really actually change your life. And I'm hoping that and I've had some people, I've gotten so many text messages and from people and emails from people that I don't even know who've written me, thank you for that, who've written me and said, your book inspired me. It's just what you went through and where you are now. And so that's what I'm hoping, Renita. I want to thank you for getting me.
It can't be but an inspiration. I mean, I thank you for sharing it. I thank you for not minding revisiting those hard periods, because some people don't want to write about that. They want to start where the success is and tell their story.
Well, I got it. But see, I got to share. Remember I told you earlier about how steel is the strongest metal, the strongest material in the world, because it's the one that's gone through fire. I have to share the fire with you that I went through so you could get a sense of, okay, who is this guy? How does he keep his head up every day, his back straight? Because that was my fire. And you, my sister, you have your own fire. What you've been through and what you're still going through in life, you have your own fire. And Viola Davis has her fire. My God, when you've been eating out of a garbage can, and now you're living in Beverly Hills, and the same thing with Oprah. Oprah, I remember reading Oprah's story. My God, I think Oprah was...
Look, she called Viola poor. She was like, your poor was worse than mine.
That's right.
You didn't get one of the other R.
That's right. I think Oprah wrote her story. I think Oprah was molested or something by uncle or something.
By a lot of people, yeah.
Yeah, she went through some things. She talked about coke addiction, cocaine. She went through that whole thing. But that was her. See, what I'm describing is, that's your fire. That's what makes you the steel you are today. People want to know, how are you, able to go through this and deal with things in life now? I tell them, man, you have no idea. If you knew, and I also make it a point too, even though I wear a jacket and a tie and all this stuff and got this fancy title, I know, forget where I come from, Renita. I make it a point. There's a lady who come in to pick up the garbage in my office every day. Her name is Miss Doris. And she come to my door, and the garbage can sits outside my door and right down the hall from the cabinet secretary and all that. I make it a point of getting up out of my seat and eyeballing Miss Doris and speaking to Miss Doris every day.
Exactly.
I remember I was at a conference, and this guy talked about this, how Charles Schwab, you've heard that name?
Yes, I've heard of him. Yeah, I worked in investment banking. Yeah.
Did you? And he talked about how Charles Schwab, I think he was at Harvard or one of them, he was trying to get his MBA or whatever it was. And he said he went into his classroom and they were getting ready for their test. And the professor asked him one question, to name the person who cleaned the office building, cleaned the office where you work. That's what and them guys couldn't tell him. And so the point he was making is, you have to be able to relate to people, and you have to understand just regular folk. And when I see Miss Doris, there's no way I could not, even the young fellow who cleans the bathroom down the hall for me, I make it a point, because when I see Miss Doris, Renita, I see my mom.
Amen.
I see my Aunt Gladys. Yes. I see people where I come from.
Yes.
There was no way where I came from, my background, that I could not speak to her and act snobbish. What? I'm one generation away from picking cotton, and I'm going to get to where I am and get a fancy title, and all of a sudden I'm going to act like I don't know these people who are working. My mom was a cook at the Busy Bee Cafe. My dad, had 2 jobs, and then when he passed, he was up at the Head Start. He was working part-time at the St. Francis, up at the Head Start, Yazoo Head Start up there. That's where I come from. I went to the cotton fields, and then all of a sudden, I'm going to get a fancy title and move up to the big city, and then I'm going to see the lady who cleans my office, and I'm going to act like I don't know her and check like she's invisible. No, there's no way.
It's amazing now how many people have gotten some titles and become president of this and that, and they act like they don't know you, and you used to hang out together in Lindsay Lawn Apartments,
Exactly.
But now they can't. You can't. They don't know anybody.
Yeah, but as soon as you get that attitude, guess what society will do? It'll remind you who you are real fast. God
Oh
has a
yeah,
way of humbling you. You know what I mean?
he does.
And
He
so
does.
I don't need to, God don't have to humble me. I'm humble every day. I thank God every day for his grace and his mercy. I know I'm not a you know, my wife been with me since high school. Lord, she knows I'm not perfect. I'm
Oh
not a
yes,
perfect
let's
human
let's
being at
let's
all.
let's talk about that because we're gonna wrap up with this one because I want to
Yes.
end with your wife. I think I know her. I'm looking at this picture and she does look very familiar to me. I've got to see some better pictures though. Some
Oh yeah,
other
you
pictures.
were in Shady Lane. She was in Longwood Cove. That's
I
where her
think
folks.
I know. Yeah, she's a very pretty girl. I know her, and her last name was Newton, right?
Newton. She was raised Miss Willette
Mm-hmm.
Johnson, Mr. Robert
Wow.
Johnson.
She's a.
If you came off of Martin Luther King Drive
Mm-hmm.
and you turned in to Shea Lane, that second left turn when you turn Longwood Cove, they lived in that house straight ahead where the Johnsons lived down there.
Uh-huh.
Sammy Johnson, they
So
lived
tell me
right there.
this. So tell me this. Did you go over there asking for cold water?
No, I saw her in the gym. We were in high school in 1978. Lord have mercy, 1978, 1979. She was in the gym and walked across there with those bell bottoms on. I said, you know what? I was a little skinny kid with an afro. I said, you know what? She's gonna be my wife one day. She don't know
Oh
it. She
my
ain't paid no
gosh.
attention to me. And I just kept on thinking, okay. Then I ended up going to the church where St. Matthew's Church of God in Christ. You're probably familiar
Uh-huh.
with St. Matthew's off Mandy there. And my sisters always tease me because I was raised in Antioch Baptist Church right there at Mandy and West 6th Street.
Oh,
That's
that was
where,
my church too. Yeah.
yes, yes. And then I started going to St. Matthew, and my sisters always tease me. See, only reason he was going there because that's where Debbie was going to church at. He ain't really cared nothing about no sanctified church. But they probably was right. They probably were right. And but yeah, she put up with me all these years, and we got two sons and got a granddaughter and a step granddaughter. So both her parents are still alive. They're just wonderful people there. And Miss Ethel, Miss Booney, we call her, and Mr. Will.
Now let me ask you this. You didn't go to the same university, right?
No, she went to your alma mater,
Right.
Jackson
So
State.
how did that happen? I mean, how did you not go to the same? You were dating in high school, right?
Yes, and I wanted to go. I started off at Hines Community College,
Uh-huh.
and so I went there, and I wanted to go to a rigorous academic, a school I thought had a rigorous academic curriculum that would push me.
Mm-hmm.
And I started doing my research. I was either going to go to Mississippi College or I was going to go to Millsap, one of those
Mm-hmm.
schools. I just felt like that would be more of a challenge for me and would push me. And I went through some challenges there, as I shared with you. They trying to run me out of school, some of those white guys there. But other than that, I'm thankful I did because it really, really, I'm able to write now, Renita, because of the experience. I tell my wife, and we talk about,
Mm-hmm.
she was telling me, she's joking me. She said that all the tests she had at Jackson State were like multiple choice questions. Well, let me tell you, the test I had at Mississippi College,
Mm-hmm.
we would walk into a classroom, and let's say, for example, if the test was about the War of 1812, the
Mm-hmm.
professor would write up on the board, the test is on the War of 1812, give me the timelines, give me the major players and how it ended and this and that. And then they would pass out these little black and white. Remember the little black and white composition books? That's what,
Mm-hmm.
the little black and white
Yep,
books.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And so they would pass those out and say, look, you write this, you answer these questions on this board in no less than 1,000 or 1,500 words.
Mm-hmm.
So what it did was it forced me to write.
Mm-hmm.
And people always today compliment me on my writing skills. And that's because I've had, after 4 years, or in this case, I went there for 2.5 years because I started off at Hines Junior College. That, boy, it was like either going through 2 years or 2.5 years of a marathon, running. That's
Wow.
what it did to my brain.
Mm-hmm.
And really, I'm working on, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I am working on a second book of fiction this time.
Good. Great.
Here's something crazy. It's going to be a time travel
Oh
fiction.
my God.
Yes, it's going to be a time travel fiction, and about the Midnight Traveler is the name I'm thinking about, and it's going to be about a guy. Let me give you a quick synopsis. It's going to be about a guy whose parents he's from my hometown, and his dad was killed trying to register people to vote in Yazoo City, and it's all fiction. And so this guy left Yazoo City, became a
Okay, wait.
policeman.
Did you already copyright this?
Uh, I did. I wrote. Well,
Okay, but
copyright.
I'm just saying, I just want to protect you because I don't want
You're
you.
right. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right. That I shouldn't tell too much, but
No,
let me just tell you,
don't. We'll talk
I'm
about
working
that
on
when
a
this
time
is
travel.
over. Yes.
You know what? See, a sister that worked at USC and been in this business, you understand. You're right.
Because I write, Bea Richards, who was from Mississippi. Bea
Yes.
Richards and my Tonia Stewart, who was in A Time to Kill. Bea played
Yes.
48. Those are my mentors. Bea helped me get my first writing scholarship, community access scholarship to UCLA. And I wrote my first script there. And so I learned a lot about it. And then I used that script to get into the Cosby program at USC.
Oh.
So yeah, I've learned a lot of. You got to be careful because people can steal your ideas. And
well, you're
but I
right. I'm
definitely want
working.
to
My
hear
wife
it.
always tells me the same thing. So yeah, I'm working on another book. It's going to be a time travel
That's
story.
all
So
you
I'll
need
leave
to
it
say. I don't want you to tell anything else. So you guys got married in what year? You
we got married in 1987. And then I was in the Navy at that time. I left and joined the Navy. I was just ready to get out of Mississippi. I had gotten out of Mississippi College and working on one part-time job to the next. And this is like the mid 80s, wasn't much going on for Black folks in terms of opportunity. So I saw this commercial that said, join the Navy, see the world. And so I said, hey, well, that's what I'm gonna do. I joined the Navy. I came back in 86. I joined the Navy. And then I came back in 87, got my bride. We moved to Virginia. And as they say, the rest is history. And 2 sons later and a grandbaby later, here we are.
And then you went on you forgot the part where y'all went on the Love Boat after the honeymoon. I mean, after the wedding.
Yeah, that's right. We took a lot of cruises at that time. And then we got married in Yazoo City. And then it took us forever to get to Virginia because I wrote about in the book how the car, we had a little U-Haul trailer connected to my little 1978 Nova car, and the thing got around at Birmingham or Atlanta, and the transmission went completely out. I couldn't drive any more than 20 miles an hour from Atlanta all the way up to Virginia. Man, I got some stories. I had to put that stuff in there, man. I want my grandbaby to read all that stuff and see it and be inspired and just say, oh my God, if these people went through this, and they could make it through this, then I can make it through anything. So yeah, it's been a wonderful journey, been a great life. But my God, man, is that me? That my God, I was really eating in, boy. Look at that picture. I was that picture. My God, I was a fat. Anyway,
that's okay. I'm gonna remove that one then. I don't want to traumatize you.
Hey, I went to the gym. It inspires me to go to the gym. When I look at actually those pictures inspire me because I get up every day now and it inspires me. I look the difference between eating a donut and getting some oatmeal or cereal for breakfast. All I have to do is look at one of those pictures and I know I'm going to eat this cereal.
Oh my gosh. And you look at this beautiful couple, and who would think some years later they'll be meeting the first lady and the president of the United States of America, 2 Yazooans.
That's right. In that picture there, my wife Debbie, I wrote about this in the book. She always said, the way you were skinning and grinning and that, holding on to Michelle, she said she felt like a third wheel in that picture because you look at the picture. He said, it don't make no sense. You holding on to Michelle like you were rocking. I mean, she just kind of standing there. So it was. They're just some classy people. Michelle and Barack are just some. They're just class people, man. They really, and they are another couple that really. That's why a lot of racists, a lot of these people, white nationalists and white supremacists, really hated them. And I don't use that word often, but they really did, because Barack and Michelle really defied and showed them that there were what they had been saying about all Black people, that we were ignorant, that we were uneducated, lazy, all that stuff. They put all that to rest. They just showed that all of that was nothing more than 300 years, 400 years of bold-faced lies, because they went up there the way they conducted themselves while they were in the White House. I don't know, a lot of white folks, I don't know if they thought that Michelle and Barack was going to move in there and they're going to put some broke down cars in front of the White House and put them up on cement blocks or something. But the way they carried themselves, you didn't hear any scandal about Barack for 8 years, Michelle, and they just conducted themselves in a very classy and dignified manner, Renita. And that's why listen, when it comes to politics, I always tell people you don't agree with everybody on any one thing. There's nobody you agree with on 100% on everything. Because I tell people, if you agree with anybody on everything, then that means there's only one of you really doing the thinking. If you agree with somebody on 100% on everything, that means that only one of them is really doing the thinking, and the other one is just kind of following along.
Right.
But Michelle and Barack, just the way they conducted themselves overall, just was pure class, and they really represented us well as Black folks.
Wow. Well, you represent us well as a Yazooan.
And
So
so do you, my
I
sister.
want
I'm
to
so
say
proud
that
of you.
you
I'm proud of you
represent,
and what you've
and I
done.
want to put. I would be remiss by not including these pictures because these are people that's very dear to your heart as well. Can you tell me about
Yes.
this particular picture? What is happening?
Well, this was in Thanksgiving 2016. We all went down there. We were at the grave site right there in Yazoo City of my parents, and we wanted to release some balloons and come down and show us all my brothers and sisters there, and Louise and Ben and Christine and Deborah and Thelma and Clem and me, and there's my two sisters, Thelma and Clem there. We vacationed quite a bit in a place called Nags Head, North Carolina. We love to get there and hang out and just spend some time together. We run a house and we go and we just vacation there for a week together, hanging out as a family and having a good time.
Wow.
And Thelma she's been a huge encouragement to me, encouraged me to write this book. And she's been on me. I'm glad she did, because with my schedule, I just never thought I'd have time to finish a book, but she pushed me, and I'm glad she did.
You called her something historian, and she is all of that. She is totally a historian with what she was doing with the Yazoo City Facebook group before I ever even thought of doing this type of web. Well, this platform is more of a virtual thing.
Yes.
To accommodate virtual conversations, not like the regular Facebook group thing. I just wanted because we couldn't get home for Yazoo Day, I just wanted a way that we can personally dialogue with each other and, come up with fun things that we can do live, virtually live. And it just,
I'm glad, Renita, I'm so glad we got an opportunity to do this, but my schedule is so, I'm between my job working for the governor here, and then I've got all these other business projects and things I'm working on. I just keep a crazy schedule these days. But I am so glad that we took the time to do this, and I've learned now about this Yazooans page. I'm going to be watching this, and I'm going to be watching you and watching what you do, and any way I can support you in any way I can. I certainly want to do that and help, and we can support each other. So
definitely.
we will definitely. In fact, my brother-in-law works at USC. I think I mentioned that to you. Yeah, he works right there. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to have to make sure you get my contact number and have him come and see me. I'm in the student affairs office, so he's definitely know where that is.
Yes, I know he works in business affairs there on campus. So he runs bookstores, and he's very involved. In fact, Tim was an actor too. He was actually in School Days, Spike Lee's School Days. Timothy Hutchinson. I joke with him. His name
is. Did you tell him about me? Did you tell him already?
You know what? I think Clem knows, so I got to make sure I tell him. I didn't know exactly which department you worked in at the University of Southern California. Now that I know it's student affairs, and I know Clem is watching this, so we're going to have to definitely connect.
So who are these? I know Clem. I know
that's my brother and sister Louise. Has been right there. He's like you, a class of 77. My sister Ellen Louise, she is right there next to Ben, class of 76. Thelma, my sister, class of 79. Christine, class of 82. Christine and Clem, class of 84. And then Deborah, I want to say Deborah's class of 9. Lord, that's my baby sister. She's going to knock me out but not remember. I know it's 88, I think it is, 88, 89. And then there's me about 45 pounds ago.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes.
That's great. Beautiful family. Like I said, I really love and admire the admiration and support that you all give each other as siblings. You know, that's so important. And I think it's a lot that we can learn from that. Other people can learn from that, you know, that
Absolutely.
example. So your parents, that's their greatest testament in how you guys love each other and support each other.
Absolutely.
So that's,
Absolutely.
I can't think of a better thing to leave your child than love, how to love and respect each other, and the love for God first of all, before anything, but definitely for each other. You know, so that's
Well,
really great.
well, I thank you. The other picture that you see there is me. First time I meet my granddaughter, Maria.
Yes, and that's why I
How
wanted to kind of wrap up with this one because she is the inspiration for all of this. And
she is, and I tell folks, I said in the book, I said, there's a picture of her in the book, and I said in the book, if you want to know what my heart looks like outside of my chest, then there it is, right there. This is what it looks like. And she is just such a special little girl. She have a sixth birthday coming up this week down in Virginia Beach. So I'm going to actually surprise her and go down to Virginia Beach from Baltimore. It's about a 4-hour drive, something like that. This week, her birthday is coming up on the 16th this week. So I'm going to go down there and surprise and go to her school. And there she is. And that's her, the little one at the bottom. And then my step granddaughter, Naya, so that's her sister, 14 years old now, and Maria is 6. So I'm actually bringing her to Yazoo City, and she's never gone down there. So I'm really looking forward to her meeting her cousins because I really want her to know who her people are, and her little cousins, and all my brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles, and I want her to know where her roots are. You know what I mean?
mhm,
That's very important to me, that she knows where she comes from, and her roots. Because as I say in the book, without roots, there is no tree.
that's
You
true.
got to have every root. Is every tree has to have its roots. So, well, thank you. This has been wonderful, Renita. I
I'm
really,
so glad. I know we went a little longer than what we anticipated, but those are the type of segments that you do that you can tell is so good that you don't even realize what time it is. So I'm glad that we had one of those that we kind of went
Renita,
over the time.
you really. I tell you, you'll see this in the book. I spent a lot of time in years and work in government. Also, I was I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but I was a television commentator,
Mm-hmm.
and I was a radio talk show host. So I can tell you've got some training in this. You do a good. It's hard to believe we've been on here since 2 hours and 23 minutes, and it doesn't feel like 2 hours and 23 minutes. It really does not. You do a fan. I've interviewed a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
in my days when I was a radio talk show host and television commentator, and you really, you and I could probably talk this.
Yes.
You know where I come from. Me and you come from the same background, so I could probably be on this phone with you on this thing for another 2 hours. But I'm not going to hold you up any longer. I appreciate it, my sister. I'm looking forward to meeting you in person. When are
Yes.
you coming back to Yazoo City? When are you coming home?
I'm hoping. I don't know. I wanted to come home from Yazoo Day, but I'm not sure because we're celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary in July.
Oh,
So
congratulations!
thank you.
Is he
So
from
I'm trying.
California?
Hmm?
Is it your spouse from California or from
He's from St. Louis, from Missouri.
St.
So we
Louis?
met
Yeah.
him here. I met him here, and we, like I said, we've been married for 25 years. I have one son. My husband is interested in music, and he's like an architect too. He just retired 40
Okay.
years. He worked for Toll Brothers with real luxury homes, and but
Yeah.
he's an artist. He's a Renaissance man. He's into all type of artistic things. He produced
That's
Smith
that's
Robinson's
great.
first gospel album, and he produced some other stuff for Barry Gordy and other artists. So he's like I said, a Renaissance man. Perfect mind, because we're always creating here. My house is full of creativity. So
Well, I tell you what, you have, and I know you've been out of LA since 1984. I'm really proud of what you've done and what you're doing with your life and how you're using this platform to bring us all together. And I look forward to being back on again. I look forward to anything I
yes,
can do to help you. And I'm just thrilled I'm very proud that you're another Yazooan, my sister, and I
Thank you.
appreciate you and thank you for this opportunity to allow me to promote the book. And again, anything I make off this book, I didn't write it to make any money. I'm going to
Yeah.
donate it to, it's going straight to the Clarence and Mary Lee Howard Foundation, and we're going to use that to give back to the community. So,
And
and I hope
yes,
that
we
people,
hope to ally with you, with Gloria, and what I do too. I have Mom's Allyship Against Racism. And
oh,
I
okay.
want to do some things to come home to bring home. There's so many things that God has given vision to do. And that's
Yes,
where I'm operating. I'm always trying to operate out of that, not for, like you said, financial gain, not for recognition, none of this. I'm paying for this platform myself for
right.
2 years. And I told you how much I've been paying for it. So you can add that up. So
Yes, yes.
so it's not me trying to make anything, but be of service, be of
That's right.
service in spreading love and unity, healing and reconciliation. That's what this platform is for. It's not for Black. It's not for all white. It's inclusive for everybody, for all Yazooans. So
That's
that's
right.
the intent, and to elevate Yazooans like yourself doing things as an inspiration to young people at home and some older people that need to know you can still do it. You can still
That's
do
right.
it. So it's not for self-serving purposes at all.
No, we're at that stage in our lives now, Renita, where, like you said, we're about legacy now and about giving back. If I could
Exactly.
be a blessing to others, that's where I really am. That's where my dad, that's the spirit he had, my mom. That's the spirit they have about being a blessing to others and giving back. That's where I am right now in my life. It's just giving back. I love that. Somebody says up here, awesome platform straight out of Yazoo City. I love it. All right. Well,
That's right.
thank you,
All
Renita.
right, my brother. God bless
Thank you, my
you.
sister.
And I'll
Thank you
be
very much.
talking to you soon, okay?
All right. And
So stay
I'm
with
going to
me.
get the 2 books for your viewers. And you let me know how you want me to handle it. I got 2 of them. I'll autograph and you let me know the names and I'll get them out to you, to them whenever you let me know.
Okay, so we're going to say goodbye, but you stay here for a second after we say goodbye. So
All
goodbye,
right.
Yazoo City. I hope you enjoyed
Thank
our
you.
segment.
Thank
Have a
you.
blessed Sunday. And don't forget to buy this book. Buy it for your kids. Buy it for yourself. And you can see this even after we finish